currently his organisation and works with us on level 7, and we'll be talking to him a little bit later on. But today we'll be focusing on a couple of areas in and around the theme of level 7. So firstly, we'll talk a little bit about why we believe level 7 apprenticeships are so important, and just how they work and what they really offer your organisation from a standpoint of leadership and development coming forward. We'll then have a conversation with Adam just all around how the senior leadership apprenticeship really works in practice, what are its kind of benefits to the organization, and really how does all of that come together for organizations and working accordingly. And then just as we after we finish that conversation, we'll then move on to just talking about, if you've been following the news recently, you'll know that changes are afoot to level 7. So for organizations who are really keen to take part in this, really just that call for action and that sense of urgency around getting your apprentices on right now so that they can benefit from these programs. And then we will revert over to some questions and answers for the last part of it. In the meantime, if you do have a question, what we'll do is just log it into the chat, and then we'll come to those in the questions and answer session. So don't worry if it doesn't get answered straight away. So moving on, I am moving my slides. So if you can't see them, do let me know. Just in case. But just a little bit about me. So I am Dean of Ashridge. Ashridge Business School we'll talk to in a moment. But I come from a mixed background of having worked both in investment banking, politics, and then into academia. And I've been involved with our apprenticeship provision here at Ashridge now for over 4 years as its academic director. And it's great to have as well one of our clients on here today around finance, because one of my areas, of course, of research is also around the theme of how we look at finance being more purposeful. And I'm people say, as Dean, what is it that you kind of do and really love about your work? And I have to say, the probably the greatest honor of being Dean here is being custodian of our great history so far and being the current custodian of it for 65 years. For 65 years, we've been delivering executive education programs. We were founded by a group of organizations such as Unilever, Guinness, big titans of British industry back in the late 1950s, who had decided that they wanted a business school that could really help the UK in helping to solve some of its business needs. Over time, we evolved, of course, and grew in size, and now have a global footprint as part of Hult International Business School, which takes us across all of the globe, from Boston, Dubai to Shanghai, and elsewhere as well. And that gives us a real global feel to the work we do, but Ashridge is still a really important part of the work that we have here. And in our 65-year history, we've always been driven by a kind of a need to get out there and really find real-world application to business issues. So through research, really thinking about what's going on for practitioners and for business leaders, so that the work that we do can really be applicable, and it fits in really strongly with the theme of Hult International Business School, which is really to be one of the most relevant business schools here in the world. We're also very proud to say that we're triple accredited and one of the first business schools in the UK to become triple accredited when that accreditations were first brought out, which gives us great confidence in the work and the programs that we do and how they are validated. And the beauty of it is as well is that we are in this lovely 12th century dating building that really does have some great architectural and historical significance as well. And in apprenticeships, which have been a more recent part of that 65-year history, we've also had our journey from growing as an apprenticeship provider. We've now had over 300 plus apprenticeship completions. We work with over 100 plus employers. And of course, one of the things that we're really proud of across our teams is the work and the effort that we do to put into our apprentices, your employees in your organizations. So we've found that 93% of our apprentices have graduated at merit and distinction. That is with external examiners as well from outside institutions validating those marks. We've seen as well in some of our studies with our employers and apprentices as well, just the fact that, they see the program as having a real impact for them as leaders in what they do going forward. And most importantly, one of the key areas around that being their own confidence, 100% of them saying that all of them have felt that the program has in some way shaped and made them more confident leaders. Now, that's great for us as well, given the fact that some of our leaders do come to us from both mid to level senior roles. So these are people, especially at level 7, who have had some experience and who are now looking for that next step in their own personal development coming forward. And it's a success story that we've drawn on from our work in executive education, but also, I guess, our motivation to really help organizations succeed in what it is we're trying to do. And that's been supported as well by our faculty. The faculty, you will have seen my bio, and you'll also now just share as well other kind of faculty bios. One of the unique things about Ashridge is that we're academics, but we never started off as academics. We've all been practitioners in our fields, worked in industry for a significant period of time at senior levels. And this allows us to experience the problems and the issues, the challenges and the opportunities that businesses have faced, and to apply our learning back again using both business frameworks and those academic learning and research that happens to help us there. So you can see here, just in terms of an example of just some of the companies, but also some of the backgrounds as well. That our colleagues have come from. And we really do pride ourselves on being relevant in the workplace, because that's where we feel the real impact of apprenticeships happen. And that's helped us in attracting a diverse range of clients here. But we have had, of course, some kind of key sectors and groups. We, during COVID, especially had a very large number of people coming in from the NHS. And we're proud to say that we've been helping to support that transformation of senior leaders in the NHS to help build a stronger and better NHS across the UK. But we're also working with great household names such as Lloyd's, of course, and others that we've seen here from Nuffield Health, Shangri-La, and others. Household names all wanting to help and support their leaders in being better leaders is where we're really getting to here. And our profile has worked across both public and private sector and across a diverse range of industries. Now, you might say, okay, all of that's great, and what have you learned from doing it? And this is where our key themes have been here. I showed you earlier the piece around impact, and our apprentices talking about just how the program has helped equip them for impact there. But what is it from an organizational perspective? Why would you perhaps put your employees through the level 7 apprenticeship? And this is what we'll hear a little bit more from Adam around, and the experience of how this fitted into the traditions of Lloyd's of London. But some of the key things here, I'll just go through a little bit around this, especially at the rate of change that we're happening right now, and change being at a core of that. We found that apprenticeships at level 7 have really helped cultivate that future ready workforce, people thinking about the multifaceted skills we're going to need. Of course, you have specialists, but leaders also need to be generalists across both leadership, change, finance, marketing, operations, and all of those different areas that they need to bring together. For other organizations, it's also been important for them in the war for talent about how can they help keep people retained. People are always looking about around, and employees might ask that question around, well, what are you going to do for my personal development and moving forward? And many of our employers have talked about the fact that how this has helped in that war for talent, around how they've been able to engage and retain talent, not just over the course of the apprenticeship, but then the apprenticeship itself has equipped them with those skills to go forward, to be promoted into new parts of the business, and to develop that as they've been going. And that, of course, means a boost in productivity and innovation. The ideas, all of our work that we do in terms of assignments and discussions is all around being relevant to your organization. And that sparks new ideas, the ability to hear from others and other industries as well, what might be going on, another big factor around how that works, and really helping to address those skills gaps that we've got, of course, in senior leadership roles. We talk about skills at the moment in the UK, and we're talking about, how many plumbers we need, how many electricians we need. I was watching the news this morning, and they were talking about, how those roles are still really important, and about how we need to recruit more. And of course, they are to, vital parts of our industrial strategy. But you also need leaders to lead those teams, to lead those businesses, and to drive that going forward. And that's a really important aspect of the level 7 thinking there. And that helps organizations in developing those leaders, better strategic thinkers, better decision making, and overall then an uplift to both that organization's productivity, but also its well-being and the way in which it works. And we do this by bringing together our practitioner faculty, who look at both what's going on in academia and research and other practitioner research, and then helping you to apply that back again to the real world, and the real world being your organization. So your apprentices aren't studying cases, they're studying your organization back again here at Ashridge. And that, therefore, across the program sees apprentices go through this culture of continuous improvement, learning about different aspects of the business and around that whole theme and schematic across those different industry themes, which mean that they're also constantly able to think about their organizations in different ways. And I get, as I mentioned earlier, which we'll come to later on, funding changes are obviously afoot with level 7. And, one of the kind of this quote here, which is very much about, you know, uh, how, of course, important this is as a standard, and of course, in leadership and development, just how important it has been to help people build that sustainable career. We went out and asked our clients what they thought, what apprentices thought of those changes in funding, and you can see here from this and many of those other quotes that real impact that apprenticeships have in helping people to define and develop that career path for them. Now, of course, how they've worked and how they currently work, it's fully funded, so £14,000 of funding to become a senior leader. Here at Ashridge, we also offer masters and MBA qualifications, and those are funded or need to be funded either by an employer contribution or, in some cases as well, self-funded. But one thing is, I guess, clear. Um, at the price that you will get an MBA and a master's qualification from an institution such as ourselves, it's still a really, in a sense, a really good value for money deal in that respects. For an MBA for many people. And of course, it's provided people with that opportunity to be able to come in and get those qualifications when, of course, fees for both the organization and for individuals have been one of the biggest barriers, of course. For many people at level 7, just the sheer cost of it has been a massive factor in them deciding not to take that on board. And therefore, for employers, of course, who are also adding to the levy, and for others, there's that return on investment. And the return on investment from those other areas around all the factors we talked about in terms of employee performance. And as I mentioned, a more affordable route to that traditional postgraduate education. And of was one of the other factors, as we were talking about earlier, was that for many employers, it has been a way to recruit the next talent pipeline that they've had. And in doing so, they've been able to then save on those costs around recruitment as well. And this isn't us just saying this is also our clients. And I'm really glad that today we've been joined by one of our clients today in Adam Triggs. And so I'll stop just on our kind of that first introductory kind of comments about who we are, but also just why we feel apprenticeships should be important to your organization from the research and the work that we've done. And now let's have an opportunity to actually hear from one of our clients. So, Adam, I'm very pleased to say, got to know him as we started off our journey with Lloyd's of London, and he's been an integral part. He's, as you can see here from his experience, the senior manager in talent and learning, but has been one of those kind of key employers, which I'm sure people here on this call are also with that similar attribute, who are really, really interested in just not just putting people on a program, but putting people on a program that is really going to have the impact and the change. And I remember in one of those first conversations with Adam, people will be giving up time, commitment, and rejuggling their lives to do this apprenticeship. It's got to really mean something for them. And he's worked with us in making sure that we build that partnership with Lloyd's of London. So welcome today, Adam,
Thank you.
to this call. Thank you.
Thanks. So yeah, nice to speak to you all. Hopefully can share some of the insights, I guess, that I've had from Lloyd's working on this program.
Great, wonderful. So let's kick start off and just in starting, let's just, we talked a little bit about, yourself, but also we've learned a little bit along the way about just Lloyd's of London's kind of real drive around leadership development and, just how important that's been. So it'd be great if you could tell us a little bit more about that approach and, of course, then where apprenticeships ended up slotting into your thinking around this area.
Yeah, definitely. So I should probably start just by talking a little bit about who Lloyds are, because you may know the name, you might not know, I guess, the context. So we're Lloyds of London, so we're not the bank, we're not the, so I can't help you with a loan. We're not the pharmacy, I can't help you with prescriptions. Lloyds of London, so none of these brands are connected, but Lloyds of London is the world's one of the world's largest insurance marketplaces. There's a place where people are coming together to share risk discuss risk and underwrite a lot of progress, I guess, we make in society. So that's the kind of context for us. And I mentioned that because we've got some unique challenges, I guess. So the Lloyd's Corporation is around 1,200 people, so fairly sizable, albeit the brand suggests larger. And then we've got the Lloyd's market, which is made up of loads of other companies that operate within the ecosystem that we help to manage. So one of the unique challenges, I guess, of my job is when we're looking at things like development and leadership development, we make decisions not only for our own corporation, our own 1,200 people, but we're also thinking about what the wider marketplace needs as well. And many of our programs then have market-facing elements and the ability to join our program. So we kind of had that unique insight when obviously we were looking for a new leadership program where it's both for our people, but also of interest to those in other organizations as well. So you probably know us more for the kind of big iconic Lloyd's building in the city, rather than the horse that you'll see on the TV screen. But we've got a range of leadership development solutions. So we've got things like, as I'm sure many of you have, 360 programs, mentoring, career programs, digital learning. But we've always had this kind of, I guess, flagship leadership program for our top leaders. And it's usually about either those that are new into leadership or readying them for those kind of roles. And if I think about leadership programs we've had before, I've been at Lloyd's for around 12 years. We've been with London Business School. We've been with Henley Business School in that time. We've had great programs, really important modules, networking opportunities. I think for us, the reason we took the step was more thinking about it's kind of two key things. One, how do we get a program where people are focused on the application of learning rather than just having a great experience? And second, how do we do something that's maybe more on scale that we've done before, where actually we can develop an even higher number of leaders than we have previously?
That's great, Adam. I mean, it's great to hear about the work that you've done, and just that intent as well as an employer, because I'm sure many on the call are also thinking about what they need to do in those two areas and how this then can meet their needs. The next question I'm going to kind of ask you here is just around why Ashridge, I guess. There's always two things to this. When I mention I'm at Ashridge, people will say, "Oh, yes, I know it," and they'll talk about, "Oh, being here or being past it, etc., and everything else." And then some people, it's actually who, what, where. Never knew it kind of existed. It's a kind of a dividing line between the two.
Yeah.
But of course, you mentioned you'd worked with other providers as well, and of course, in the wide architecture that you have, you do. But why did you decide to come to Ashridge for your level 7 programs?
Yeah, I mean, Harry, you didn't describe the fact that's not your home background behind you in that
No,
screensaver.
exactly.
So,
Yes.
so I knew it probably for the castle and the history that goes behind that, and I see on a few of the backdrops. But yeah, I think for us at a leadership level, I mean, we make different decisions for providers at all different levels. I think when you get to that leadership level, to be honest, there is a bit of kudos and prestige needed. And that's maybe why we've traditionally worked with, let's say, companies like London Business School, Henley Business School. So I think the fact that Ashridge obviously were a renowned business school, and you talked about the kind of triple accreditation. I mean, they were really useful signals for us that this is someone that we should be looking at. I mean, as ever with these things, we obviously started with a long list, went down to a short list, and obviously started working with yourself. So I think for us, that prestige, if you're going to encourage your top leaders to invest their time and make the efforts on this program, they need to feel that this is perhaps a program of prestige. That said, we weren't fixated with business schools only as part of the longer recruitment process. We spoke to a wide range of providers, but I think this was the right choice for us. It felt like it offered what we needed. And I think some of the key things that we picked up as part of that kind of tender process was around, I guess, your history with the application of learning, which was kind of the part I think we were missing on the programs we had before. Can we see the noticeable change as someone goes through the program? I think we always used to get really good feedback on the programs, but in a way, smaller, shorter module programs don't always allow you to go back and try things, put it into practice, and then come back as a cohort and think about what's worked and refine. So I think that was kind of well evidenced as we spoke to you. And also, as you talked about some of the positive outcomes in terms of the number of people getting through those endpoint assessments with kind of high distinctions, merits, and positive outcomes, they were super important for us.
Right. And that moves us on to our next question there, Adam. I mean, you mentioned a little bit there about, the impact and taking it back to the workplace, and that was a need there. But when you were looking at this, how did that senior leader program that we offer kind of meet Lloyd's of London's needs?
Yeah, I think the breadth of topics were probably a big driver towards, and I know that's obviously a part of a level 7 program. If I think about programs we've had before, they would have touched on elements of these topics. So we used to have, something about understanding yourself as a leader, and thinking about change, and a little bit on maybe strategy. But I think the breadth of the program in terms of the content and topics that are going to be covered, in a way, helped us think actually this is a much deeper level of knowledge that the leaders are going to come out with compared to maybe some of the programs we've had previously. So I think when we kind of worked through the topics and how that was going to play out, it matched the skills needs that we as an organization, as a marketplace, needed to be driving in our leaders. I think the other option, and you touched upon this before, is probably the kind of range of accreditation pathways. Because again, I think a big sell sometimes for a leader, especially investing the amount of time, is for some coming out with some kind of accreditation at the end, and that wasn't part of our previous programs. We know some people are academic driven and want to continue to add letters to the end of their titles and put things on their CV that show their level of competence. So the ability to either go down just an apprenticeship route, a postgraduate diploma, or to top up with a master's, I think was quite attractive for us. And I think the other part that was really useful for this program in particular, when we consider it maybe to some of the other partners we spoke with, was the ability to come together every module as a cohort in person to discuss these topics. I think, we did look at some of those that were maybe purely online, but we know from our previous leadership programs that actually as good as the learning can be, sometimes it's the coming together and applying that to the real world where really you get that transfer of learning and that networking.
Yeah, no, absolutely there. And I mean, just on that point around the qualifications pieces, of course, apprenticeships provide, the ability to have that impact, but it isn't a really important aspect, isn't it, for people's CVs, especially in some organizations, they need either that MBA or that master's qualification to be able to then be considered for that next kind of role going forward.
Yeah,
Now,
and the good thing
just
is it's a choice as well. So we also have some people on the current program, for example, that aren't as academically minded,
yeah,
and just going through the apprenticeship route means they come out with all the same skills, but they
yeah.
maybe don't have to do all the additional research that they'd otherwise do for a master's.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, look, I mean, just on this, I mean, I'm sure people are sat watching this call and saying, this is all well and good, but these must be quite difficult, from the employer perspective to kind of get going and to get set up. And this question here is, how easy was it really to get those apprenticeships, up and running? And we can then kind of explore a little bit more about some of the key themes that come out from that.
Yeah, I think in terms of logistics, pretty easy, I would say. I mean, historically, and again, other organizations may be the same, but I think, we were using it for some grads and apprentices to come into our business. But if we think about we have kind of thousands of people applying for our grad and apprentice programs, and we can offer maybe 10 places realistically, in order to support them with meaningful work. So I think we'd used it, and there's a team that works specifically on that. In terms of, I think about the leadership program, it was pretty easy. I mean, for ourselves, we knew we had Levy Pot. We knew we weren't using it. That's another driver. We were kind of realizing what was going to waste. But I think in terms of us, in terms of setting it up, I think we were led all the way by yourselves, and we had some knowledge of it. And if I think about, again, putting together a program where smaller companies in the market who weren't even having grads and apprentices in, so they literally were not using their levy at all, it was pretty easy to give them the support they needed to set it up from scratch. So firstly, accessing their levy, putting the system, and then getting their learners set up. So from that perspective, it was pretty easy. I think, to be honest, the work and effort is more into just socializing the notion of apprenticeships in your business. I think for a lot of organizations, you say the word apprenticeship and you're thinking grad and apprentice. And I think a lot of our managers, leaders, decision makers, that was their experience to date of apprenticeships. I think once you've done that work in terms of building knowledge about what apprenticeships can offer, and then two things: what the expectations are of employees. So those going on the programs, we just need to make sure they're fully informed in terms of what that will mean for their ongoing study. And then the same for managers to a degree. And the good thing about apprenticeships is the involvement of the manager in the process. It's something we've always tried to replicate in our programs so that managers are part of the journey, but the nature of apprenticeships means that they are heavily involved as someone goes through the program. There are defined touch points where they will be either providing them with opportunities to put learning into action, or reflecting on how someone has grown and applied the learning back in the workplace. So pretty easy to get up and running. Obviously, it's a level 7 content. So again, from a content perspective, it's already gone through that strong accreditation process by experts.
Great, thank you, Adam. I mean, and just as we build on that, that brings us into our next question. I mean, you know, of course, one of the elements is this whole application back to the workplace. But then, for anyone who is busy and a senior leader already within their organization, asking them to take time out to commit to being able to be on a program is one of these kind of moments about how will all of this kind of work. So here, this piece around, employers do often worry about the on the job learning, and just what's been your experience of that for the Lloyd's of London apprentices, of course, that have been on the program?
Yeah, I mean, it's the right question to ask, because I think for most people kind of thinking of moving into the space is probably the biggest nervousness. I know it was our nervousness when we maybe thought, even kind of 2-3 years ago, moving into this space. And then same, I think, when we spoke to other companies in the Lloyd's market and talked to them about what we were planning with the leadership program, it's the most obvious question that comes to mind. I think in terms of making it work, I think it's a bit of an evolution. So, we started our first cohort in January. I would say the first cohort is very much a bedding in period, for a number of reasons. I think it's about developing some pretty good habits early on, in terms of how you're going to make this more in the flow of work, rather than feeling that this is a kind of 8-hour bolt on that's going to kind of lengthen your day, or consume your weekends, or whatever it might be. It's around, how do I actually do this in a strategic way where it's part of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, rather than a pure bolt-on. So I think for a lot of our employees, it was just building those good habits early. I think they obviously get support from yourselves, but also they were supporting each other early on with their kind of action learning sets and their groups, in terms of sharing knowledge about what was working and wasn't working from that perspective. And then, to a degree, kind of sharing that back with managers as well. So the managers are fully bought into the experience. They understand what their people need as they go through this program, and they can kind of provide them with the support and the opportunities. I think it's, in a way, it's easier once people start seeing the benefit of the program. So as soon as they start seeing how they're actually able to apply this in the workplace and it's making a difference, like most things, you're then kind of willing to put the extra work in to make it happen. And if anything, I think it's taught a lot of our people probably some kind of secondary leadership skills. I think to myself this year, actually stepping up more into a leadership role, and sometimes there's a range of stuff that you end up doing as a leader that you either didn't know how was happening in the background, or certainly wouldn't say is the best part of your role. And unfortunately, that's sometimes part of leadership and stepping up. So I think for a lot of our learners, it was around kind of just getting comfortable with that, being resilient, and just building some really good habits. And we don't in a way, we don't lie to people up front in terms of pretending this is going to be a smooth, easy piece that you can just pick up your phone once a week, and there's nothing more to do. So making sure people are fully on board with that at the start, and then you're supporting them along the way, I think is the key.
Yeah, no, and it all ties in, doesn't it, about that piece around kind of relevance is really important here. And that brings us to our next question around, how have you found the program being made relevant, around the needs for both your organization and those apprentices as well from us?
Yeah, so I think we've got like a closed cohort, as I say, for the kind of wider Lloyd's market. I think two things here. So one, the ability to connect your module leaders with experts from our industry, and that's sometimes that's Lloyd's, sometimes that's individual companies within the market that are doing great work on a particular topic. But actually, connecting people with the kind of experts and leaders in our industry on this topic, because it's one thing to talk about strategy in a textbook sense, but it makes much more profound if people and your lecturers understand what the strategy is within our industry. What are the key things that are happening at the moment? What are the key challenges that people are facing? And then immediately it gives it relevance and interest. So I think the ability to throw in those links, even though, as I say, for a level 7 program, that there's clearly structure and good topics and depth within that. I think the other is around, I know we're keen to make sure that we had these kind of action learning sets as part of our program. I know you call them POWs, and I always forget what the P stands for, but action learning sets as we would know them, so that actually they are networking and discussing challenges that they've got with each other on an ongoing basis. So these were, say, some of the elements that we had on a kind of commercially led program that we wanted to make sure also weaved into the apprenticeship program that we had.
Yeah. No, and what's been kind of really interesting from the perspective of I've seen as well. I mean, as you said, we've learned a lot about Lloyd's. Some of our colleagues had worked closely with them, and the industry kind of moves and changes. But also the learning that happens across the board as well in the organization from the individuals, because you think, well, we're all from one organization, but actually people see that difference of what's happening across different partners has been really fascinating to see happen in that space.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the good thing about a network of leaders is that some leaders are approaching challenges that other leaders in the room would have already solved. So the
Yeah.
ability to kind of discuss these things real time is really powerful.
And just as we kind of close, to a couple of last questions here. Thank you, firstly, Adam, for sharing your experience with us and with those on the call as well. You kind of highlighted the challenges and also the positives around doing this. But so far, and I know you're still in tow in kind of completing that first cohort, but what do you feel perhaps has been the impact so far that you've seen from these apprentices and for
Yeah,
your
you're right.
organization?
You're right. So we're still kind of cohort one. So first cohort, kind of 11 months in now, I guess. So they're over the halfway point. I think what I've probably seen and heard from them is around a few things, I guess. So one, around the opportunities that have been made available to them from being on the program. As I say, the fact that they need to be working on real projects in the flow of work related to the topics they're working on means that naturally they're getting opportunities, I think, that they wouldn't otherwise have got. It kind of, in a way, forces that situation. I mean, we can all do all the succession planning we want on the side and tell people to give these people opportunities, but this program certainly makes it possible that they are getting those opportunities. I think I know some of our learners have been obviously taking the tools and techniques that they're learning and then using them back in their teams, which is great to see. So again, rather than just saying that was a really fun module, they're taking that concept of how you build a great strategy and then using that in the flow of work and saying to us, actually, that was a much easier process. It led to positive outcomes, etc., etc. And I know even one of the managers said to me, actually, in catching up with my learner, he shared something with me that he was working on. I thought, well, that's a different way of doing it. So don't hope you mind, but I actually pinched that and used that as an alternative way to address that topic with the kind of larger team. So I think even the managers, as I say, feel part of the process and are kind of picking up stuff as well, even if they're at a higher level.
That's great, thank you. And one last question, Adam. As we know, the level 7 kind of apprenticeships are going to see a funding cut. That means that really, if organizations do want to kind of experience the benefits as we've described here, it's about how we can get onto this as soon as possible. But if we had an ear to the government right now, and they were hearing out about the future of level 7, and we've talked about just the positives for yourselves as well, who are also a very big levy payer as well in all of this, what might that be in terms of the future for level 7, and what would you possibly want to say around that?
Yeah, they haven't asked me, so thanks for asking me anyway. I mean, I think I'll be honest. I think we need to obviously wait and see what comes from the changes. I know you'll be close to that detail and will guide us as we go. I think what we've seen though is that certainly this is useful development for a range of people at this level. So as I say, it's something we'd wanted to do for quite a while. In a way, took the plunge with, and we're kind of seeing the benefits of using the levy to support people at this more senior level. So I would say kind of whatever happens with it, I think we need to make sure that levy still has an ability to do that. Whether that means that things become shorter, sharper, whatever that means might be, broken down into subtopics. I mean, the key point here in a way is the skills part. So, I'd be comfortable if this was broken down into, more shorter topics that are much more sharper on some of these leadership topics. I think as long as we've got the ability to still use this to develop leaders, because ultimately otherwise what we fall back to is the position where we can maybe develop a small group of people who maybe get a tap on the shoulder and a bit of money thrown their way, as opposed to what we've been able to do, which is actually train a larger group of people, much more diverse, people that maybe otherwise wouldn't have had this kind of development, and do it in a way that helps our overall leadership ability and leadership pipeline internally. So whichever way it goes, hopefully, as I say, it still provides those opportunities. It's opened our eyes to apprenticeships. We're now using you guys for some level 5 as well with our grad and apprentices at a business level. So I think we've seen actually there's a range of topics and skills here that the levy could ultimately help to support.
Great. Thank you so much, Adam, for your time today and from bringing that across. We'll pause in a moment for questions. I'll just kind of bring in one final slide to bring that across. And this is just from one of our surveys where we asked that question about, the biggest knowledge and skills takeaways that our apprentices kind of see, and why it is so important. I think just what you said there about these the development of skills is not just about technical skills, it is about leadership and management as well, and for a whole range of different people who just wouldn't have had access to this otherwise. Important, and we see apprentices all the time come through this journey. A core focus of it, as you can see there, is leadership, strategy, finance, but also for everyone, there's a variety of different things depending on their backgrounds, their experience, but more so what they're going to be doing coming forward in the future. So thank you for sharing those insights with us today, and especially how you've gone about doing that at Lloyd's. Before we kind of close, I think we've got perhaps a couple of a question, I think, in the chat, which is how did you select the people on the first cohort? I don't know, Adam, whether you just wanted to talk about that a little bit, your selection process.
Yeah, sure. I think the nature of the change to this apprentice program allowed us to kind of rethink how we did select people for the program. So I think traditionally, without getting too granular detail, we used to have programs where we could select a smaller group of people from the corporation, and then most of the rest of the places went to the Lloyd's market. So you always kind of constrained by how many people you could have on the program. I think with this program, there's certainly a minimum, but there's ability to really scale up that program. So what it meant was actually we were able to put a larger number of people on this first cohort than we would normally be able to develop in an other type of leadership program. So there was a couple of things that we did. One was to look at who our kind of top talent and who was on succession plans, all that kind of talent identification that you might have to take this program and promote it to those people. But to be honest, we were also able to advertise it more widely and transparently than we've done before. So what we ended up with was probably a mix on that cohort then of people that were from those kind of top talent lists that had been kind of promoted this program too, and they were in a way up for the challenge, because for some people they do have to consider whether this is the right time and the right program for them. But also then it was available to other leaders, other senior managers, aspiring people who wanted to become better leaders. So and we didn't stop that kind of self-selection element either. Our criteria was, are they a good performer? Are they at the right level and therefore would have the ability to put this into practice? And if they kind of met those criteria, then of course, why wouldn't you let someone develop their leadership skills? It's going to be directly relevant back to the organization. So that's how we now do it, compared to, say, when we did it before and we thought, okay, we've probably got 5 places, let's go and tap some people on the shoulder and let them on.
Yeah, no, that's great, Adam. Thank you so much for that. And thank you again. So just as we kind of change direction here, now you've heard about our apprentices, you heard it from me. We've had that conversation as well from Adam, just about how it all works for a client. And I'd just like to hand over to our head of apprenticeships, Cheryl Nelson, and Paulo Lopez from the sales team, just to talk a little bit now about what next steps might look like for you, for those of you who are listening in today. So over to you, Cheryl.
I'm sure you can all hear me okay. And thank you, Adam. Really valued your insights, and certainly working with you over the past couple of years as we get ready for our second cohort starting in January. Before I move on to sort of next steps, and for those of you who want to hear more about the program level, because we've purposely not gone into granular detail here, just wanted to check, and thank you, Louise, for your question. Is there any other questions that you'd like to ask of Adam or Harry while we've still got a bit of time? I just wonder if anyone wants to put their hand up or anything in the chat. Just checking in. So what I will do is just introduce my colleague, Paulo. Paulo is part of my team. So do you want to just say a quick hello, Paulo?
Hello, everybody. It's been great to hear this, Adam. Lovely to hear your story. You obviously heard it internally, and it's great to meet you and hear you. And yeah, we're here to support you all. I work on the business development team with Cheryl, so be looking forward to reaching out to many of you after this call. Thank you.
So essentially, as Adam alluded to, the Lloyd's and Market Leadership Programme is actually a closed cohort. We are able to offer both closed and open cohorts. And given the fact that we now know that the level 7 is being defunded, what we don't know is the fact of when that's going to happen. But that's, you know, we're working towards that happening towards the latter part of next year. So therefore, we are working with employers currently, and our recruitment and enrolments are now open for the Senior Leader Apprenticeship, which will be starting in May 2025. And that is offering both the pathways that we've talked about today, the Diploma in Leadership and Management, and indeed the MBA pathway of learning. So effectively, what we will be doing is reaching out to all of you. But if anybody wants to have a more urgent conversation with us before Christmas, where we can talk about not only the ways that we supported Lloyd's of London and the marketplace, but how we've supported and partnered with other organisations who are looking, whether that be on a larger scale, as we did with Lloyd's, or those where you've got a number of people that you feel, perhaps a smaller number of people that you feel are ready for this kind of opportunity, but also don't want to miss out on the fact that this is being defunded. You know, please reach out to us or put your name in the chat here, and we will certainly reach out to you in good time. But effectively, you know, we are here to support. We work with a number of different sectors, and the important thing is actually we partner with you. This is not a carte blanche. This is the way we do it, and everyone comes through on our processes. The good thing about the way that we work as an agile business school is the fact that we're able to talk to you about your challenges and your needs and how this can support that going forward. So thank you very much, and thank you to Harry and Adam, and of course Mel and Paolo for everybody that's actually helped put this together, and of course for you for joining us today. And we really hope that you found it of interest and giving you food for thought in terms of your own succession planning, etc.
Thanks, Cheryl. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today. And we'll hope to see you soon. Do feel free to do that, or just as Cheryl said, put your name in the chat. Otherwise, we can ask you now to leave the call. Thank you very much.